In the discussion of skill development in AAU basketball and how all players should develop like Europeans and other things that various NBA coaches have said over the last year, as well as Kobe Bryant, one thing that I don't think has been mentioned is the influence of parents on the learning environment. So if you go to any AAU game or any children's game, it doesn't have to be AAU. It can be a Parks and Rec game. Uh, you will hear dozens of parents in the crowd yelling and screaming at players virtually for every movement. I thought of this after seeing a cartoon that Dr. Martin Toms put on Twitter today. But I see it in soccer, I see it in basketball, as the parents are very involved in the game. You can tell that they really want their child to succeed, but they may or may not be going about it in the best way because constantly yelling at the players, as the cartoon depicts, changes the player's attention and draws the player's attention towards their parent and not towards what's going on in the game, or if it's a dead ball situation, maybe what their coach is telling them. So the difference is when I was in Europe, so I played in Europe when I was 19 years old, played on an under 20 team and also a second division team in my town. And then I've coached in Europe 3 different times, both coaching senior teams or adult teams and then also some youth teams in each instance. And very rarely did parents even attend games. So when I played as a 19-year-old, there was one parent who came to our game, and he was our team manager. So we had a coach who had no kids on the team. Then we had a team manager who was my friend Daniel's dad. And then none of the other parents even showed up. And at the time, I thought it was sad. I had come from a high school. I had 500,000 people at basketball games. For playoffs, would sell out gyms, stuff like that. And then I was playing in these games, and there were maybe 30, 40 people in the stands, and I thought it was kind of sad that there was a lack of energy or enthusiasm from the crowd, and that my friends there didn't get to experience the same type of environment that I had experienced in the States. But the benefit is you don't have parents that are overly involved and yelling and screaming at players and distracting attention and creating a lesser learning environment. When I've coached teams, like last time when I coached in Denmark, I really only met one parent, and he never really even talked to me about basketball so much. He was there. He helped set up the gym before our senior games. We talked. We were friendly. Never spoke to me about his son's playing, never talked about playing time or his position or how he was used or number of shots or, anything. It was just kind of, friendly, small talk, and that was that. He was involved in the fact that he would drive his son places so that he could practice, and he helped with the club, as many of the parents there do. But he wasn't overly eager. He wasn't yelling and screaming in the stands. I never heard him. And he wasn't overly involved in promoting his son or, any of the things that are common to kind of the youth sports system in the States. So I think that's, it's an overlooked thing, but I think it can have a decent effect on the development of a player just based on how the parents behave at games. And how parents behave after games and before games. When the parents make every game seem like, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, players start to take on their behavior. And now a game becomes more than just the game. It's not just a place to see what they've learned this past week at practice, but now it's, we have to win, we have to win, we have to win, which changes the behaviors of players on the court. So now they fear making mistakes, they fear losing. They won't try new things. They won't go outside their comfort zone. All the things that we try to encourage players to do to enhance their learning or to improve their skills, they're less likely to do because of the environment created. And oftentimes it's created either by the coach or, the more that you watch these games, it's created by the parents. And again, I think it's parents that mean well and are trying to help their children, but because they're so invested in helping their child, they don't realize that they're actually creating a negative environment for the children. That the yelling and the screaming, and even if it's positive and even if it's, instructions, it detracts from the player's own learning. So instead of players making decisions, they're hearing their mom or dad yell at them, shoot or pass, or watch out behind you, or all the things that the players actually need to learn for themselves. The parents are yelling at the players, and doing some of the learning for them, because the parents have the experience, they've watched the games, they've played the games, etc. And so they can see what's going to happen. They know what's going to happen. They see a potential mistake happening, and they want to try to prevent that mistake, from happening to their player or their son, or daughter. But the players really need to experience that and be in an environment where that's okay to experience that mistake and then learn from that mistake, because they're not going to learn just by hearing their parents yell. Because at some point in their careers, if they are lucky enough to develop and improve, they're going to play in a situation where you can't hear your dad on the sideline or your mom on the sideline yelling at you and trying to give you instructions for every movement that you're going to make on a court. You're going to have to rely on your own knowledge, your own experience, your own instincts. And if those haven't developed because you're constantly listening to a coach or a parent, then you're not going to be successful. So, as we talk about development and AAU and Europe and all these other ideas that are out there in the youth sports space, I really think that the parents' behavior at games is something that isn't talked about enough, outside of some sports psychologists that I know. And I really do think that the behaviors of the parents have an effect on creating the environment, and also whether or not that environment becomes a learning environment or a performance environment. And if we want the games to help develop skills and help to develop players, we want to create the learning environment. And when the parents are, constantly yelling and giving instructions and so forth, it becomes more of a performance environment, and that may detract from the player's skill, player, and talent development over time.